He fell for his mysterious pen pal, then discovered she was the slave girl cleaning his room. A widowed planter sits by lamplight, reading letters that heal his broken heart. The words are elegant, learned, full of tender wisdom about his sick boy's breathing and his own deep grief. He dreams of meeting this refined lady who writes from shadows, but when thunder crashes and rain pounds the roof, a scrap of paper falls from a cleaning rag and the handwriting matches perfectly. The girl who scrubs his floors in silence, who hums healing songs for his son, who never meets his eyes. She is his beloved correspondent. Now patrollers circle the house like wolves. A slave trader counts gold pieces in the yard. The overseer's ledger shows crooked numbers and a plan to sell her quiet-like before dawn. When the storm breaks the bridge and the only safe crossing lies through floodwaters, will three desperate souls trust a hymn that maps the darkness? And when the courthouse Bible opens to a hidden page marked with faded ribbon, whose secret will the margin reveal, and will anyone believe the word of a child who was never supposed to learn to read? He fell for his mysterious pen pal, then discovered she was the slave girl cleaning his room. A widowed planter sits by lamplight, reading letters that heal his broken heart. The words are elegant, learned, full of tender wisdom about his sick boy's breathing and his own deep grief. He dreams of meeting this refined lady who writes from shadows, but when thunder crashes and rain pounds the roof, a scrap of paper falls from a cleaning rag and the handwriting matches perfectly. The girl who scrubs his floors in silence, who hums healing songs for his son, who never meets his eyes. She is his beloved correspondent. Now patrollers circle the house like wolves. A slave trader counts gold pieces in the yard. The overseer's ledger shows crooked numbers and a plan to sell her quiet-like before dawn. When the storm breaks the bridge and the only safe crossing lies through floodwaters, will three desperate souls trust a hymn that maps the darkness? And when the courthouse Bible opens to a hidden page marked with faded ribbon, whose secret will the margin reveal, and will anyone believe the word of a child who was never supposed to learn to read? The letter arrived with the milk wagon at first light. Nathaniel Haverly found it tucked beside the cream jar on his kitchen table, the paper thick as Sunday hymnal pages. No name marked the envelope. No seal pressed its flap, just careful script that spelled his Christian name in strokes clean as carved stone. Asterisk Mr. Nathaniel, asterisk asterisk. Lieutenant Jonah Briggs has 3 mouths to feed and wheat rotted by early rain. Mercy sits closer to your heart than coin. Check the figures twice. Some tallies walk crooked paths. Asterisk, asterisk. In hope of your gentle spirit. Asterisk. Steam rose from the herb kettle where Aunt Dinah brewed Thomas's morning tea. The boy sat hunched at the pine table, shoulders sharp as bird wings beneath his nightshirt, 7 years old and built of twigs and worry. Papa, my chest feels tight. Thomas's voice came thin as morning mist. Nathaniel folded the letter and slipped it into his vest. Drink your tea, son. The mint will help. But the words on that paper stirred something in him. A voice spoke from those lines, educated, tender, sure of itself, like his Martha used to sound when she'd quote scripture at bedtime, before the fever took her, before the plantation started feeling like a ship with no compass. Little Elsie appeared in the doorway, bucket in one hand, scrub brush in the other. 10 years old, with eyes that caught everything and gave nothing back. She moved quiet as shadows, humming under her breath. Always humming. "Morning, Miss Elsie," Thomas called. His face brightened when she smiled. She nodded and set to work on the kitchen flagstones. Her hymn wound through the morning air, some melody Nathaniel half remembered from chapel. The tempo steady as a heartbeat. Thomas's breathing slowed, his shoulders dropped. Nathaniel stared. The boy's wheezing had gentled with that simple tune. The back door slammed. Overseer Pike stomped in, boots heavy on the clean floor. He was a thick man with small eyes and hands that stayed fisted even when he slept. "Haverly, we need words about the accounts." Nathaniel poured coffee into a tin cup. "What accounts?" "Estate's bleeding money. Debts pile higher than cordwood." Pike's gaze fell on Elsie, still scrubbing. "Time to sell off some dead weight. Small hands go first. They eat but can't work full measure." Elsie's humming stopped. "She's just a child," Nathaniel said. "Child who costs coin." Pike drained his cup in one swallow. "Caro up in Richmond pays good money for house girls. especially ones that can read. The words hit like cold water. Nathaniel looked at Elsie, head bent over her work. Could she read? He'd never noticed before, never really looked. "We'll discuss it later," he said. Pike grunted and left. Thomas reached for Elsie's hand. "Don't let him sell you. Please, Papa." The girl's fingers were soap-raw and gentle. She squeezed the boy's hand once, then returned to her bucket. Her humming started again, soft as breath. After breakfast, Nathaniel walked to his study. The room smelled of leather and lamp oil, shadows thick in the corners. His desk sat crooked on 3 good legs and 1 pine block. The heavy family Bible propped up the short corner, thick as a man's fist and bound in cracked calfskin. Another letter waited on his blotter. Asterisk, Mr. Nathaniel asterisk asterisk. When breath comes hard, try pattern breathing. 4 counts in, hold 4, out 4, hold 4. The rhythm teaches the lungs to trust again. Wild mint and horehound from the midwife's rack make a tea that opens tight places. Asterisk, asterisk. Your son's spirit runs bright. Trust what soothes him. Asterisk, asterisk. In gentle, concern. Asterisk, Nathaniel read it twice. Then again. The handwriting flowed like water over stones, each letter formed with perfect care. This mysterious woman, it had to be a woman. The words carried such tender knowing, understood his boy's suffering, knew exactly what might help. He thought of Thomas's eased breathing when Elsie hummed her hymns. The floorboards creaked. Elsie slipped in with her cleaning rags, eyes fixed on the baseboards. She moved around him like he was furniture, dusting the windowsills, wiping the lamp chimneys. When she reached the desk, she worked carefully around the Bible. Her fingers brushed its worn spine. Something caught his eye. A strip of faded ribbon poked from between the Bible's pages, thin as a grass blade. Had it always been there? "Elsie," he said softly. She looked up. Her eyes were dark as creek water. "Do you know your letters?" A pause. Then she shook her head and returned to her work. But Nathaniel caught something in that pause, a flicker, like candlelight behind shutters. "The humming you do. Where did you learn those songs?" "From my mama." Her voice came barely above a whisper. "Before she passed. They help Thomas breathe easier. Music calms the heart, sir. Hearts teach the lungs." The words struck him still. Hearts teach the lungs. Exactly what the letter had suggested, just phrased different, simpler, but the same understanding underneath. Elsie finished dusting and moved toward the door. "Elsie," he called again. She turned. "Thank you for the humming." She smiled then, quick as summer lightning, and was gone. At midday, Tenant Jonah Briggs came knocking, hat in his hands, shoulders bent under worry's weight. His 3 children waited in the wagon, thin as fence posts. "Mr. Haverley, sir, about the rent." Nathaniel remembered the first letter's words. "Mercy sits closer to your heart than coin. Wheat rotted, you said? Early rain took most of it. What's left won't cover seed money for next year, let alone what I owe." Pike appeared from the barn, ledger book tucked under his arm. "Briggs owes $47. Pay or move along." "47?" Jonah's face went white. "We agreed on 32. Interest," Pike said. "And penalties for late payment." Nathaniel took the ledger from Pike's hands. The pages were muddy with corrections, numbers scratched out and rewritten, hard to read. "Show me the original agreement." Pike's jaw tightened. "Private tallies." "Don't concern you. Everything on this plantation concerns me." Through the kitchen window, Nathaniel glimpsed Elsie mopping the hallway. She moved with her head down, but her path brought her close to the open door, close enough to hear. Pike snatched back the ledger. Man's got debts, debts got penalties. But Nathaniel had seen enough. The numbers didn't sit right. Too many scratches. Too much mess. "Jonah, how much can you pay?" $15, sir. Maybe 20 if I sell the plow horse." "Keep your horse. $20 settles it." Pike's face darkened. "That's not business sense. It's mercy sense." Nathaniel counted out the difference from his own purse. "Take it, Jonah. Feed your children." After they left, Pike spat in the dirt. "You'll bankrupt us with that soft heart." Maybe. But the letter writer's words rang true. Some things mattered more than money. That evening, another letter appeared, this one longer, written in the same elegant hand. Asterisk, Mr. Nathaniel ***, your kindness to the Briggs family shows the man your Martha married. She would be proud. Grief clouds the heart, but it need not harden it. ***, some ledgers carry double entries where one should stand. Some men profit from confusion. The truth lives in details, a crooked 7 here. A mule team counted twice there. ***, watch for such things. Your Martha watches too, from her rest. ***, in admiration and hope. Nathaniel's hands shook. This stranger knew Martha's name, knew their private sorrows. The words wrapped around his grief like a warm shawl. Who was she, this mysterious woman with her perfect penmanship and tender wisdom? He imagined her in a parlor somewhere, lamplight falling on her face as she wrote, a lady of breeding and learning, someone who understood loss and chose hope anyway. For the first time since Martha died, his heart felt something besides emptiness. The next morning brought Thomas's worst spell yet. The boy woke gasping, face grey as old ash. Aunt Dinah hovered with tinctures and poultices, but nothing helped. Then Elsie appeared with a bundle wrapped in clean muslin, wild mint and horehound, just like the letter had prescribed. For tea, she said simply. Nathaniel stared at the herbs. Where did you find these? Midwife's rack. Behind the smokehouse, the exact place the letter had mentioned. While the tea steeped, Nathaniel tried the breathing pattern from the second letter. 4 counts in, hold 4, out 4, hold 4. He showed Thomas the rhythm, counting on his fingers. Like a song, Thomas whispered. Elsie began to hum, low and steady, timing her melody to match the breathing count. 4 beats rising, 4 beats holding, 4 beats falling away. Thomas's color returned, his breathing smoothed. How did you know? Nathaniel asked Elsie. Mama taught me, before she went to glory. Taught you what? That breath is prayer, and prayer finds its own rhythm. Again, the same deep understanding that lived in the letters, the same gentle wisdom wrapped in different words. That afternoon, Nathaniel sat in his study, rereading every letter. The handwriting never wavered, each loop and stroke formed with care. This woman, whoever she was, had watched him from afar, seen his struggles with Thomas, his kindness to Jonah, his grief for Martha. She understood him in ways that felt like providence. The Bible still sat crooked under his desk corner, that thin ribbon marking some hidden page. He'd never looked to see what passage it marked. Martha had been the Bible reader in their house. Maybe it was time to start again. Sunday dinner brought visitors. Pike had invited Patroller Sykes, a lean man with eyes like winter sky. They sat at Nathaniel's table, talking loud about runaway slaves and the need for proper discipline. Heard you got yourself a lady correspondent, Sykes said, cutting his ham with sharp strokes. Writing you love letters. Heat climbed Nathaniel's neck. Who told you that? Pike grinned. Word travels. Unmarried planter gets mysterious mail. Folks notice. Must be some refined woman. Sykes continued. Educated type. Probably lives in town. Got nothing better to do than chase after widowed farmers. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. These men knew nothing about the letters' true nature, the wisdom they contained, the comfort they brought. Elsie entered with fresh biscuits, moving quiet, as always. She set the basket on the table and turned to leave. Hold there, girl. Sykes caught her wrist. Let's see what you got in that cleaning rag. Sir? Elsie's voice came small. Sykes shook her cloth. A scrap of paper fluttered out, landing near Pike's plate. The overseer snatched it up. Well, well. Pike's smile turned ugly. Look at this handwriting. Nathaniel's blood went cold. The script on that paper scrap matched the letters exactly, every curve and flourish the same. Sykes leaned forward, studying Elsie's face. You been writing letters, girl? I don't know letters, sir. Don't lie to me. His grip tightened on her wrist. This your hand? The room spun around Nathaniel. His mysterious correspondent, his educated lady, his source of comfort and hope, was the slave girl who cleaned his floors, the child who never met his eyes, who hummed hymns while she worked and spoke only when spoken to. He had fallen for his mysterious pen pal, then discovered she was the slave girl cleaning his room. Pike laughed, harsh and loud. Nathaniel's been sweet on a slave child. Wait till the county hears this. Thomas jumped up from his chair. Don't hurt her. Sykes ignored the boy, his eyes fixed on Elsie. Literate slaves are dangerous, illegal in 3 counties. Caro will pay extra for one that can write. No, Nathaniel whispered. Oh yes. Pike stood, still holding the paper scrap. This changes everything. Girl's going to Richmond tomorrow. Elsie's eyes met Nathaniel's for one terrible moment. In them he saw fear, yes, but also something else. Dignity, and knowledge that went deeper than her years. She had written those letters, had reached across the vast distance between their worlds to touch his broken heart with words of hope. And now she would pay for that kindness with her freedom. The truth sat between them like a loaded gun. Nathaniel's shame, Elsie's danger, and the bitter knowledge that love, even innocent love between souls, could kill when it crossed the wrong lines. Pike folded the paper and tucked it in his vest. Wagon comes at dawn. Thomas started to cry. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance, and the first drops of rain began to fall. Rain drummed against the study windows as Nathaniel paced the floor like a caged animal. Pike had locked Elsie in the kitchen loft for safekeeping, posting himself outside with a jug of corn whiskey and a loaded pistol. The letters lay scattered across Nathaniel's desk, their elegant script now carrying a different weight. Each word had been shaped by small fingers, written in secret moments stolen from scrubbing and sweeping. How many nights had she sat by candlelight, forming these careful thoughts while the rest of the world slept? Thomas coughed from his bedroom down the hall, the sound raw and desperate. Without Elsie's soothing hymns, his breathing had grown ragged again. "Papa?" The boy appeared in the doorway, nightshirt hanging loose on his thin frame. "Where's Elsie?" "In the loft." "Why?" "Because she showed kindness to a grieving man. Because she wrote words that healed his broken heart. Because she dared to reach across the terrible divide that separated their worlds. She's in some trouble, son." Thomas wiped his nose on his sleeve. "Can I see her?" "Not now. Will they really sell her?" Nathaniel's throat constricted. "I'm trying to prevent that. But what could he do?" Pike held the legal authority as overseer. The forged debt papers gave him excuse enough, and Sykes carried the backing of county law. A soft tapping came from the loft above, Morse-like, deliberate. Nathaniel looked up. The sound came again. 3 quick taps, pause, 3 more. "She's scared," Thomas whispered, "or trying to communicate." Nathaniel remembered the letter's references to hidden meanings, to truth living in details. What if Elsie had more to tell him? The front door opened. Aunt Dinah entered, shaking rain from her shawl. "Pike's passed out drunk by the kitchen door," she said quietly, snoring like a bull. "The key?" "In his pocket." Her eyes were shrewd. Might could slip it free without waking him. Thomas grabbed Nathaniel's hand. "Please, Papa." I can't breathe right without her humming. 5 minutes later, they climbed the narrow loft stairs. Elsie sat by the small window, knees drawn to her chest. She looked even smaller in the cramped space, but her spine stayed straight. "Child," Aunt Dinah breathed. "You wrote those letters?" Elsie nodded. "How? Where did you learn such fine writing?" "Miss Martha taught me, before she took sick." Elsie's voice came soft but steady. She said, learning was a light that nobody could blow out. Nathaniel's heart clenched. Martha, teaching a slave child to read and write in secret. It was like her. Gentle rebellion dressed as kindness. "The letters," he said. "How did you know what to write?" "I listened, watched. You carried such sadness, Mr. Nathaniel. And Master Thomas needed healing." She touched the Bible ribbon around her wrist. "This marks the pages Miss Martha showed me. Comfort verses. And other things." "What other things?" Elsie unwound the ribbon from her wrist and handed it to him. "Find the marked pages. The margins tell stories." Thomas coughed again, harsh and painful. Elsie began to hum, that same low melody that always soothed him. The boy's breathing gentled. "The hymn," Nathaniel said. "It's not just for calming, is it?" "No, sir. It's a map." "A map?" "Old preacher who married my mama and papa, he taught it to her. Different verses mark different crossings, safe houses. Hidden paths," her eyes met his. "Roads that patrollers don't know." Understanding dawned. The letters had mentioned hidden meanings, patterns within patterns. Elsie's hymns carried more than comfort, they carried escape routes. "You have to run," Nathaniel said. "Tonight, while Pike's drunk." Run where? They'll catch me before morning. Then we'll all go. Find someone who can help. Mr. Nathaniel, you can't. I can't what? Let them sell you like livestock? You saved my son's life with your medicine knowledge. You saved my sanity with your letters. His voice cracked. I won't lose you too. Thomas curled up against Elsie's side. Don't go without us. Outside, hoofbeats splashed through the mud. Voices carried on the wind. Pike's drunken snores had stopped. Someone's coming, Aunt Dinah hissed from below. They crept to the loft window. 3 riders approached the house, lanterns bobbing in the rain. Nathaniel recognized Caro, the Richmond slave trader. He'd come early. Girl, Pike's voice bellowed from the kitchen. Where's my key? Backstairs, Elsie whispered. Quick. They slipped down the narrow servant steps that led to the root cellar. Rain leaked through the kitchen floor above, dripping in steady rhythm. Thomas shivered in his thin nightshirt. My coat's in the study, Nathaniel whispered. No time. Elsie pulled a quilt from the storage chest. This will do. Voices grew louder upstairs, boots on floorboards, Pike cursing. Caro's nasal tone demanding to inspect the merchandise. They'll search the whole house, Nathaniel said. Not if they think we've run to the quarters. Elsie moved to the cellar's back wall and pressed her hand against a loose board. It swung inward, revealing a narrow passage. Storm tunnel. Leads to the old still house. How did you? Miss Martha showed me. Said every house needs its secrets. Martha again. Always thinking ahead. Always protecting those she loved. They squeezed through the passage. Thomas pressed between them. The tunnel smelled of earth and standing water, but it was dry, and it was hidden. Behind them, boots thundered down the cellar stairs. Lantern light flickered through the cracks. Nothing here, Pike growled. Check the quarters. They waited in the dark until the sounds faded. Then Elsie led them through the tunnel's other end, emerging in the abandoned still house behind a tangle of honeysuckle vines. Rain fell harder now, turning the plantation paths to mud. Lightning split the sky, showing the slave quarters in stark relief. Lanterns moved between the cabins as Pike's search party roused everyone from sleep. We can't stay here, Nathaniel said. No, sir, but I know where we can go. Elsie pointed across the fields toward the river. Preacher's hymn starts with the landing. By the waters of sorrow, by the waters of hope. That's miles away, safe miles, if we follow the melody right. Thomas coughed into the quilt. I can walk. Son, you're too sick. I'm not staying without Elsie. The boys' fierce loyalty decided it. They would run together, or not at all. Elsie began to hum, so quietly only they could hear. The same melody as always, but now Nathaniel listened for its hidden meanings. The tune rose and fell like landscape, marking turns and pauses. She led them away from the house, following fence lines and creek beds. The hymn guided their steps, verse for movement, refrain for waiting. When patrollers' lanterns swept the fields, they crouched in tobacco rows until the light passed. Thomas never complained, though his breathing came labored. Elsie adjusted their pace to match his strength, humming encouragement when he stumbled. Near midnight, they reached the river landing. The ferry dock stood empty, its poles black against the storm-tossed water. On the far bank, more lanterns moved, Pike's search spreading wider. Now what? Nathaniel asked. Elsie studied the river, her lips moving silently, counting beats in her hymn, matching them to landmarks across the water. Ephraim's place, she said finally. The old boatman, 2 miles downstream. He ferries folks who need quiet passage. Will he help us? Miss Martha used to send him medicine when his rheumatism flared. He owes her memory that much. They followed the river path, through stands of cypress and willow. Thomas rode piggyback when his legs gave out, arms wrapped around Nathaniel's neck. The boy felt light as autumn leaves. Ephraim's landing was little more than a crude dock and a tar paper shack, but smoke rose from the chimney and a boat bobbed at the mooring. The old boatman answered their knock with a shotgun in his hands. When he recognized Nathaniel, his weathered face creased into a frown. Mr. Haverley, what brings you out in such weather? We need passage upriver, to the county seat. Ephraim's eyes found Elsie, took in her wet dress and frightened face. This about the girl? She's in danger. We all are. I heard Pike was fixing to sell her. Ephraim lowered his gun. Also heard she's got book learning. That's not a crime. Ain't legal either. The old man stepped aside. Come in. Get dry. His shack smelled of fish and tobacco smoke. A banjo hung on the wall beside faded daguerreotypes of long-dead faces. Ephraim poured coffee while they huddled near his fire. County clerk's in town for the quarterly account settling, he said. If you got business with estate records, tomorrow's the day. What kind of business? Debts. Property transfers. Manumissions. His eyes found Elsie again. Sometimes old papers surface that change things. Elsie touched the ribbon, still wound around her fingers. The Bible margins. What's in those margins, child? Miss Martha's writing. Private notes. She looked at Nathaniel. About promises she made. What promises? You have to see for yourself, at the right place, with the right witness. Thunder crashed overhead, shaking the little shack. Through the window, they watched trees bend nearly horizontal in the gale. Storm's getting worse, Ephraim said. Ferry Bridge won't hold much longer. We have to reach town before the clerk leaves. Not in this weather. River's too wild. But Elsie was humming again, staring out at the churning water. Her melody carried new urgency, new patterns. There's another way, she said. If the hymn's right, if I remember the verses true. What way? She pointed upstream, where lightning revealed the broken silhouette of an old railroad trestle. Half its span had collapsed years ago, but the stone pillars still stood. Shallow crossing there. When the water's high enough to hide us, but not so high we can't wade. That's madness. That's the only path Pike won't think to watch. Her dark eyes reflected the firelight. Trust the hymn, Mr. Nathaniel. Trust what Miss Martha taught me. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, 3 fugitives, master, slave, and sickly child, planned their desperate gamble against time, weather, and the men who would destroy them all for the sin of caring across forbidden lines. The truth waited in town, hidden in Bible margins and courthouse records, if they lived to reach it. Dawn came grey and angry, the sky bruised with storm clouds that refused to break. Ephraim's boat cut through choppy water toward the broken trestle, its engine coughing like Thomas's laboured breathing. The boy sat wrapped in oilcloth between Nathaniel and Elsie, face pale but determined. Are we almost there? Soon, Elsie murmured, her hymn barely audible above the engine's noise. Each verse marked another landmark, the lightning-split oak, the abandoned mill, the stone bridge that once carried trains to Charleston. Pike and his riders appeared on the far bank, lanterns cutting through the morning gloom. They'd expected the fugitives to take the main ferry crossing. The broken trestle would buy precious time. There, Ephraim pointed to shallow water between the standing pillars. Water's high, but not too high. You can wade it. Nathaniel studied the crossing. 50 yards of swift current over slippery stones, with a sick child and a 10-year-old girl carrying the only proof of their innocence. I'll carry Thomas, he said. You hold tight to that ribbon. Elsie nodded, winding the faded silk around her wrist. The hymn says to trust the stones with circles. Avoid the smooth ones. More wisdom hidden in her mother's song. Even river crossings had been mapped in melody. They slipped into the water, gasping at its cold bite. The current pulled at their legs, trying to sweep them downstream toward the rapids. Thomas clung to Nathaniel's shoulders, his small body shaking with more than chill. Halfway across, disaster struck. Elsie slipped on moss-covered stone and went under. The ribbon tore free from her wrist, trailing in the dark water like a snake. The marker, she cried, surfacing and gasping. Without the ribbon, they couldn't find the specific Bible page. The margins would remain unread, their secret lost forever. But Thomas was quicker than the current. His thin arm shot out, fingers closing on the silk just as it was about to disappear. Got it, he wheezed, grinning despite his blue lips. They reached the far bank as Pike's search party spotted them. Shouts echoed across the water, followed by the splash of horses entering the river. This way, Elsie whispered, wringing out her sodden skirts. Her hymn resumed, guiding them through pine thickets toward the county road. By the waters of sorrow, by the waters of hope. The town of Millbrook sat in a river bend, its courthouse dome visible above morning mist. Nathaniel's heart hammered as they approached the clerk's office. Everything depended on what Martha had written in those hidden margins and whether anyone would believe the word of a slave child over established men like Pike and Caro. Clerk Harrow was loading his wagon when they arrived. A thin man with ink-stained fingers and careful eyes, he looked up in surprise at their bedraggled appearance. "Mr. Haverley, what brings you to town so early?" "Estate business, about the Haverley accounts. Pike was here yesterday. Said everything was settled." Harrow's gaze found Elsie. "This, the girl he wanted sold?" "This is Elsie. She has information about discrepancies in our ledgers." "Discrepancies? Double entries? False debts?" Nathaniel's voice gained strength. "Pike's been stealing from the estate. And from me," Harrow frowned. "That's a serious accusation. The proof is in your office. In the Bible you used to steady your desk." "The old Haverley Bible?" Harrow looked puzzled. "It's just a desk prop. Pages are too faded to read." "The margins aren't," Elsie said quietly. "Miss Martha wrote notes there. Private promises." The clerk studied her face. "You can read?" "Yes, sir. That's illegal. Reading truth ain't never illegal," Elsie replied, her voice steady as stone. "Just dangerous to some folks." Harrow unlocked his office and led them inside. The heavy Bible sat wedged under his desk's short leg, exactly as Elsie had predicted. She knelt beside it and carefully slipped the damp ribbon between its pages. "Here," she whispered, opening to the marked passage. "Isaiah 61, the Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, to proclaim liberty to the captives." But it wasn't the scripture that mattered. It was the cramped handwriting in the margin, faded brown with age, but still legible in the morning light. Asterisk, upon the settlement of the next cotton crop, let the child Elsie be granted her freedom, in gratitude for her tender care of my son Thomas. She has proven herself worthy of liberty through faithful service and Christian devotion. Martha Haverley, witnessed by Dr. Finch, this 15th day of October, 1853. Asterisk. Harrow leaned closer, adjusting his spectacles. "This is Mrs. Haverley's hand." "It is," Nathaniel breathed. "I know her writing better than my own. And Dr. Finch is dead these 6 months. But his mark is there. His signature." Elsie pointed to a small medical symbol scratched beside the date. "He drew that on all his prescriptions. A circle with a cross. I watched him make it when he treated Thomas's fever." Footsteps thundered up the courthouse steps. Pike burst through the door, water streaming from his clothes, Caro and Sykes close behind. "That girl's stolen property," Pike snarled. "Belongs to the estate. According to this margin note, she belongs to herself," Harrow said mildly. "Manumission, upon crop settlement. Properly witnessed." Caro pushed forward, gold teeth glinting. "Margin scribbles don't count. Could be forged. By a woman who's been dead 8 months." "By her," Caro pointed at Elsie. "Smart little slaves learn to copy handwriting. It's a favorite trick." Sykes nodded. "Girl's a criminal. Literacy, forgery, running away. That's 3 crimes. She hangs or ships to the sugar fields." Thomas pressed closer to Elsie's side. "You can't hurt her. She saved my life." "Sick boys' delusions don't matter in law," Pike said. "I'm the legal overseer. The girl comes with me." But Harrow was studying the Bible page with his magnifying glass, comparing Martha's margin notes to other samples of her writing he'd pulled from the estate files. "The ink is the right age," he murmured. "Paper's authentic. Hand matches her known signature." He looked up at Pike. "What crop settlement was Mrs. Haverley referring to?" Pike's face darkened. "Cotton's not harvested yet. But corn is, and tobacco. According to your own reports, the estate showed profit of $200 last month. That money's already allocated. To debts." "What debts?" Pike fumbled with his ledger, pages sticking together with river water. The neat columns of figures had run together into muddy smears. Elsie stepped forward. "I can tell you what the book said before the water spoiled it." "You memorized ledger entries?" Harrow asked. "I memorize everything. Have to, when you can't write things down safe." Her voice carried quiet dignity. "Page 12, line 7. Mule team purchase, $42. Same entry on page 18, line 3. Same mules counted twice." Pike's jaw worked like he was chewing nails. "Girls lying. Page 15, line 20. Seed corn advanced to Briggs, $32. But Mr. Pike told Mr. Briggs he owed $47, with interest. That's $15 extra that went somewhere. Sykes shifted uncomfortably. Slave testimony doesn't count in court. But arithmetic does, Harrow said. He turned to Pike. Where are the missing funds? There are no missing funds. Then, you won't mind if I audit the complete records? The records were damaged in the storm. How convenient. Harrow made a note in his daybook. Mr. Haverley, do you have the funds to settle your wife's promised manumission? Nathaniel reached into his coat and pulled out a leather pouch. $200, gold and silver. Then, I declare the terms met. Harrow reached for his seal and wax. Miss Elsie, do you understand what manumission means? It means I'm free, sir. It means you're responsible for yourself. No one owns your labor or your choices. But no one owes you protection either. Elsie's chin lifted. I understand. Pike lunged forward. You can't do this. She's valuable property. She's a human being, and according to Mrs. Haverley's clear written intent, she's a free human being. The wax dripped red onto the manumission paper. Harrow pressed his official seal into the warm mass, then handed the document to Elsie. Her hands didn't shake as she took it. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me. Thank Mrs. Haverley, and your own courage. Outside, church bells began to ring. Sunday morning in Millbrook, calling the faithful to worship. Caro spat into the dirt. This ain't over. Free blacks cause trouble. Always do. Then I suggest you avoid trouble. Harrow replied. Good day, gentlemen. Pike stormed off without a word, Caro and Sykes trailing behind. Their plans had crumbled like sand castles in the tide. Thomas tugged Elsie's skirt. Are you really free? She knelt to meet his eyes. Free as the wind, baby boy. Will you still live with us? If your papa wants. Nathaniel's throat was too tight for words. He simply nodded. They walked to the church, following the bell's sweet summons. Inside, sunlight streamed through tall windows onto packed pews. The congregation was singing, their voices raised in harmony. Elsie began to hum along. Not the coded escape song this time, but a hymn of pure joy, her freedom song. Thomas's breathing came easy now, his color pink, with health and happiness. The storm had passed, leaving clear skies and new beginnings in its wake. 6 months later, autumn painted the Haverley plantation in shades of gold and crimson. The cotton grew tall and white, the tobacco barns hung heavy with cured leaves, and the account books showed their first profit since Martha's death. Elsie sat at the desk in what had once been Martha's parlor, now transformed into a schoolroom. Sunlight slanted through clean windows onto her carefully formed letters. She was teaching herself to write in a bold, confident hand, no longer hiding her learning in shadows. Thomas bent over his slate beside her, tongue poking out in concentration as he copied his alphabet. At 8 years old, he'd grown stronger, his cheeks filling out with good food and happiness. His cough had nearly disappeared. Miss Elsie, he said, what's this word mean? She looked at his slate where he'd written, freedom, in careful capitals. It means you belong to yourself, she said gently. Your thoughts, your choices, your dreams. Nobody can buy them or sell them or take them away. Like you belong to yourself now. That's right. The kitchen door opened, and Nathaniel entered carrying a pot of mint tea. In the months since that terrible night, lines had eased around his eyes. His smile came quicker now, his laughter deeper. He set the tea on the desk beside a stack of letters. Not mysterious correspondence this time, responses to his advertisement in the Richmond paper seeking a qualified teacher for his plantation school. The idea had sparked from watching Elsie work with Thomas. If one child could benefit from education, why not others? Any promising replies? Elsie asked, gesturing to the letters. 3, all asking about my unusual educational experiment. He chuckled. Apparently, teaching both white and colored children in the same classroom is considered revolutionary. Revolution starts with one person willing to try something different. Nathaniel looked at her, really looked, the way he'd never done when she was just the quiet girl who cleaned his floors. Elsie had grown in the months since gaining her freedom, not just in height, but in presence. She carried herself with quiet dignity, spoke with considered wisdom, and commanded respect from everyone who met her. The Quaker woman from Philadelphia. Sounds most promising, he continued. Miss Patience Whitmore. She's taught integrated classes before. When would she arrive? Next month, if we agree to terms. Nathaniel poured tea for all three of them. She'll need assistant teachers. Local people who understand the community. Elsie's eyes brightened. You're offering me a position? If you want it. Teaching, wages, room and board. Respect due to your skills. His voice grew serious. I know it's asking a lot. Folks around here aren't ready for a colored teacher. You'd face suspicion, maybe hostility. I've faced worse. She touched the manumission paper she kept folded in her dress pocket. Besides, somebody has to be first. Might as well be me. Thomas looked up from his slate. You'll stay? Really? Try and get rid of me, young master. He giggled at the old formality used in play now, not servitude. A knock at the front door interrupted them. Nathaniel went to answer, returning with Ephraim the boatman. The old man had become a regular visitor, often bringing news from other plantations or the county seat. Morning, folks. Got word from Millbrook you might want to hear. They gathered around him expectantly. Pike's gone to jail. 6 months hard labor for embezzlement and fraud. Seems Clerk Harrow found more irregularities in estate records across 3 counties. Pike was running quite the scheme. What about Carrow? Nathaniel asked. Fled to Alabama, left debts and angry associates behind. Ephraim grinned. Justice finds its way sometimes. And Sykes? Lost his patroller commission. New sheriff doesn't hold with his methods. Thomas clapped his hands. The bad men can't hurt us anymore. That's right, boy. Ephraim's weathered face crinkled with affection. You're safe now, all of you. After Ephraim left, they returned to their lessons. But Nathaniel found himself distracted, watching Elsie help Thomas with his reading. She had infinite patience, breaking down difficult words into simple sounds, encouraging him when he struggled. How did you know? He asked suddenly. She looked up. Know what? That night in the loft, you said the letters drew from things you remembered. What things? Elsie was quiet for a moment, gathering her thoughts. I remember everything I've ever seen written, she said finally. Every page, every line. Miss Martha's Bible had notes all through it, recipes, remedies, thoughts about scripture. The medicine for Thomas's breathing came from margin notes beside the healing psalms. And the other things? The knowledge about law and business? When your papa came to settle affairs after Miss Martha passed, I cleaned his office while he and Master worked on papers, deeds, contracts, bills of sale. I read them all. Her eyes met his. I wanted to understand the world I lived in, the laws that governed my life. You were preparing yourself. For what? I didn't know then. But Miss Martha always said learning was the key that opened locked doors. She was right. Nathaniel reached across the desk and took her hand, the hand that had written those letters, scrubbed those floors, carried medicine to heal his son. Thank you for everything. Elsie smiled. Thank you for listening, for hearing past the color of my skin to the person underneath. Thomas looked up from his slate again. Can I write a letter now? A real one? To who? Elsie asked. To Mama, in heaven, to tell her we're all right. Nathaniel's throat tightened. That's a beautiful idea, son. As sunset painted the sky purple and gold, they walked together to the small cemetery where Martha rested beneath a simple granite stone. Thomas knelt and placed his letter on the grave, held down by a smooth river rock. Elsie began to hum, one of the old spirituals that had carried them through their darkest nights. Other voices joined in Aunt Dinah from the kitchen, the field hands returning from their day's work, neighbors drawn by the music floating on the evening air. The hymn rose and fell like gentle waves, carrying gratitude and hope on its melody, no longer a coded map to freedom, but a celebration of freedom found. When the last notes faded, Nathaniel put his arms around both children, one white, one black, both precious beyond measure. We should go in, he said softly. Supper's waiting. They walked back toward the house, where lantern light glowed warm in every window. The big Bible sat open on the parlor table now, its margins revealed for all to read. Martha's notes about healing herbs, her thoughts on scripture, her promise of freedom kept at last. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, Miss Whitmore's arrival, the school's opening, the slow work of changing hearts and minds. But tonight, they were simply a family gathered around their table, sharing food and laughter, and the deep contentment of souls at peace. As Elsie helped clear the dishes, she noticed Nathaniel watching her with the same wonder he'd shown that first morning when he'd realized she was his mysterious correspondent. "What?" she asked, smiling. "Just thinking about letters, how they can cross any distance, break through any barrier, if they carry the right words." "What are the right words?" He considered this, watching Thomas play with his wooden soldiers by the fire. "Truth," he said finally. "Kindness, hope, love that sees past differences to the heart underneath." Elsie nodded, then returned to her work. But she was thinking too about all the letters yet to be written, all the minds yet to be opened, all the barriers yet to fall. Outside, fireflies began their nightly dance, stitching light between the porch columns like tiny prayers made visible. The story had ended where it began, with letters, with learning, with the quiet miracle of one human heart reaching out to touch another across the vast spaces that divide us all. And in the morning, new stories would begin.